So module number 3 is process synchronization and deadlocker. So what all we are going to learn under this? Concurrency, that is principle of concurrency. Then we are going to learn about the inter-process communication, mutual exclusion requirements, hardware support, operating system support, that is the semaphores, producer and consumer problem, and the dining philosopher's problem. So let's understand what are the types of processes. Multi-programming, the management of multiple programs within a uniprocessor. So there is only one single processor. That is, suppose, let us take an example. So there is one single CPU, central processing unit, and inside this CPU there are multiple programs which have to run. So multiple programs are running. So the management of multiple processes within a uniprocessor. So you have to manage the multiple processes inside only one single processor. What is multiprocessing? The management of multiple processes within a multiprocessor. So multi-programming means uniprocessor, only one single processor and many programs. Multi-processing means many processes and many processors. Many processes, many processors means multi-processing. Multi-programming, multiple processes, only a multiple processes, single processor. And distributed processing, the management of multiple processes executing on a multiple distributed computer system. So there is multiple distributed computer systems and many processes are running on that computer system. So when you talk about multi-programming, what is multi-programming? There is only one single CPU, only one single processor, and inside that multiple programs are running. Multi-processes, there are many processors in multiprocessing. So multiprocessing name suggests many processors are there and many processes will run. So each of them will be assigned one single process because there are many processors. So what is inter-process communication? Processes frequently need to communicate with other processes. So one process, say process P1 has to communicate with the process P2. Now how this communication will take place? So you need frequent communication between the processes. What are the issues of inter-process communication? How one process can pass information to another processor. So it is nothing but what is inter-process communication? How one process, that is process P1, will pass its information to another process, that is process P2. Making sure two or more processes do not get in each other's way. For example, two processes in an airline reservation system, each trying to grab the last seat on the plane for different customers. So there are two processes in an airline reservation system and each process is trying to grab the last seat on the plane of different customers. So if there is a last seat there, then which customer should get the seat? If two customers are going at the same time, that is two processes are reaching to that seat at the same time, then there will be a problem. So you have to make sure with the help of inter-process communication that two processes do not reach or do not grab or do not come in each other's way, do not grab the last seat at the same time, do not come in each other's way. And the third is proper sequencing when dependencies are processes. So if process A produces data and process B prints them, then B has to wait until A has produced some data before starting to print. So what is it saying? If there is a process which is, say, process A, and process A has to produce some data and this data has to be printed by process B. So process B has to wait until this process A has produced the data. So this is nothing but proper sequencing when dependencies are present. What is dependency? To be dependent. In this case, process B is dependent on process A to produce some data. So you need a proper sequencing. We can't start the process B first because process B is dependent on process A. So proper sequencing has to be done. Proper sequencing means you have to allow process A first. You allow the process A first. When process A completes its execution, allow process B after that. So you have to ensure proper sequencing when dependencies, when a process is dependent on the previous process. So when process B is dependent on process A, we have to ensure that there is proper sequencing done. Process A is executed first, and after that only process B is executed. Okay. So next is inter-process communication. Processes within a system may be independent or cooperating. So processes can be either independent process or they can be cooperating process. Independent process cannot affect or be affected by execution of another process. So in case of process A was an independent process, it just had to produce the data. So process A is independent. So that's why it is not affected by the execution of any other process. But process B is dependent on process A. So process B is not an independent process. It is dependent on another process, that is process A. So independent processes are basically those processes. So example is process A, which was printing data. So it is what? It is an independent process. It is not affected by the execution of any other process. What are cooperating processes? Cooperating process can affect or be affected by other processes, including sharing data. So cooperating processes, they are affected by the execution of another processes. They can be affected by the execution of another processes, including sharing the data. So when you want to share data between two processes, suppose process A has some data and it wants to share its data with the process B, then what will happen? Process A and process B are cooperating processes, as they will be affected if other process is not there. So if process B suppose is not there, then process A will be affected because it will not be able to share its data. If process B is not there but process A is not there, process B will be affected. So when the two processes, if one process is not present amongst the two and if they are affected, then we say that they are cooperating processes. They have to be present in the system so that no one is affected. So both of them have to be present. Process A and process B have to be present compulsorily. Otherwise one will be affected. And so we say that process A and process B are cooperating processes. Cooperating processes will need the inter-process communication. Why will independent processes not need any communication of inter-process communication? Because they are independent of the execution of another processor. So you don't have to communicate anything. So they will not need. But when you have a communication required between the two processes, when one process is dependent on the other processor, then what we do? We have inter-process communication. So reason for the cooperating process, you want to share information. Process A wants to share its information with process B. You need what? That means both the processes are cooperating processes, and cooperating processes will require inter-process communication. They will require inter-process communication. Computation speed, modularity, convenience.